Hello, everybody. This is Ryan with firmTRAK Solutions, and I'm joined today by both of our partners, Karen Weiss-Krolkowski and Richard Barr. And we're back again to talk about or expand on something we talked about earlier in the year, which was as a little reminder, was the Feds passed the Secure Act 2.0, and that stands for Setting Every Community Up for Retirement Enhancement Act, and they changed some of the laws and requirements for contributions on the Simple IRA plans. And now, today, we're going to chat a little bit about some of the state governments following suit. And I think there's been a little bit of a paradigm shift on governments focusing on employees and workers' access to savings in the terms of a retirement account and retirement benefits. And Illinois has passed something called the Secure Choice Act, and it's kind of been delayed because they passed it back in 2015. They had some amendments. There was an implementation somewhere around November 2023 where they phased in the threshold for the number of employees who were required to participate. And then the pandemic hit. So they had a year grace period for that, and then the pandemic hit. They delayed it even further. And long story short, here in Illinois, the Illinois government is starting to send out letters related to your requirements for offering your employee benefits and your employees qualified savings benefits like a 401k or a simple IRA. And so we just wanted to chat a little bit about that issue that is happening now currently. And Rich, you run a small business. We run a small business. What have you ran into regarding the Illinois Secure Choice Act and how it's been implemented in its current form?
Yeah, what's recently happened with my office is that the State of Illinois Department of Revenue sent to my office a notice of proposed assessment, which was dated March 23rd, 2026. At the time, I was surprised that the assessment that they wanted to assess against me was $1,500 relating to some alleged noncompliance starting in 2024. And admittedly, at the time, I didn't really have an understanding of what this program is. And since March, I've received another notice about my noncompliance and the assessment of $1,500. Now, I think before we get too far into trying to explain what happens and what we're supposed to do, I think Ryan had a nice overview of the act, but I think that this is typical legislation and how it typically works. I mean, Ryan had indicated that it was put into effect, or at least it was created on January 4th. It became law on January 1 or June 1. The state totally missed the implementation. They couldn't do it. Finally goes live May 2018. But the key is the employer sides, when it went into place, initially was 500 employees. So if you're an employer, you had more than 500 employees, you had to comply with the act with very little to no penalty imposition. They modified it in 2019 and again in November of 2019. So July and 19, they reduced it down to between 25 and 99 employees. And that was in November of 2099. But at that point, it was still limited to 25 employees. Now comes the biggest expansion that started to pull businesses like mine and many of the others that we work with into play. In July of 2021, they lowered the threshold from 25 down to 5. Now, this was truly now when it starts impacting the small businesses. But at that point, the enforcement mechanisms that the state had were very minimal to non-existent. It was more of almost a voluntary compliance type of a situation with really no teeth. Now, starting in 23, they started to actively monitor compliance, but then the hammer took place on January 14th, 2026, which is likely the reason that I received and probably many others received notifications that they were in non-compliance. So they started to talk about the modification that took place in January, and then now the modification in January is rolling over to the enforcement. Now, going back to my specific particular issue, I have full-time people. I have 5 full-time employees, or 5 people that are paid as W-2 wage earners in my business. Under the act, it's been modified in such a way that they average that if you have more than 5 employees, that you're subject to the act. So if you consider the fact that you may have 1 employee for 1 quarter or less, depending on the wages earned, no matter what happens, that employee is going to throw you over the 5 employee threshold, which is going to require compliance. So because in my situation, because I was out of compliance since 2024, they've assessed $250 per person, I believe per quarter, which comes up for me a $1,500 penalty. Now, like the state wants to do, they start high with the threshold. They continue to provide more and more and more level of scrutiny and more imposition of burdens upon small businesses. But they're offering an olive branch, and the olive branch for small businesses at this point is that we need to enroll into the program by July 21, 2026. And if we do that, then they will not enforce the penalties and we can move forward. So for me, I've recently started to try to go through this process to try to understand what I need to do in order to avoid a $1,500 penalty. And it has now raised, some big concerns on how I'm managing my business and the things that I need to do, because now it's starting to touch upon my administrative burden, my bookkeeping, my accounting and notification to employees who are actually going to be shocked by some of these requirements. Some of the requirements right now, I've been through the state, I've been working on it for probably 45 minutes to an hour. And ultimately the employees will be notified of the registration if you go through the state plan, and the employees will have 30 days to actively opt out. And if they opt out of the plan, there'll be no payroll deductions. If they fail to opt out and they fail to give any direction, then the employer, the small business owner, is required to withhold 5% of their paycheck and basically give it to the state for them to invest it into some IRA, Roth IRA. So, from my standpoint, as a small business owner, it's just one more administrative burden that I think is overly taxing, and it is a function of the government that puts employers in a position where they need to decide if they want to comply with the state mandate and sign up through the state program, or they need to do something else. And one of the other options that I've seen, and what we've talked about a little bit prior to this conversation, is that there is a private offering, and the private offering can be your own retirement plan. Ryan, you've got some experience with some of those things. What are you seeing in other states, and what's your thought on that?
Well, I know the one other state that has a similar requirement is California, and they did something called the Cal Savers Act, and they have a similar implementation where they require you to register your employees, and for the employer, you have to provide a affirmative yes or no. Do you offer a private version of a retirement savings account or 401k or any other qualified plan? And if you do, then that you meet all the requirements. If you don't, then you use the Cal Savers portal to register employees, and then they can opt in or out. So it's a similar implementation. I think, as I said in the intro, there's kind of a paradigm shift in how some of these state governments and the federal government are approaching savings. Whether their reasoning is sound, time will tell on that. But I also wanted to mention quickly, Karen, there are some tools available just at the basic operational bookkeeping level. What are some of those tools, just to nuts and bolts of how to implement the bookkeeping side of a retirement savings or 401k plan?
Yeah, you can check with your payroll provider and see if they have a direct integration with the plan itself. And then also when you're doing the bookkeeping part of it, you just want to make sure that if you have to send a check, that you're booking it to and from the same account, so that you're not actually, you're sending in the funds, but you're actually not getting getting it ahead of itself, so to speak. So you have to map it correctly.
Yeah, there are accounting requirements on the totals that both the investment account has to comply with, and that foundation is going to come from your bookkeeping. So
yeah, and depending on what your salary is, there's also a cap on how much you can contribute per year. So you might want to check with your bookkeeper and or accountant, and even a tax provider can give you those numbers.
And for my assessment, when I'm taking a look at the options, if I did offer retirement benefits or a retirement option for my employees, then I would be exempt. So one of the things that I'm looking at now is maybe the ease of implementation by utilization of the state program versus the control that I would have if I have my own retirement account or my own retirement program. So I think one of the tasks that I'm going to do, and I encourage other small business owners to do, is look at the pros and the cons of utilizing a third party, a Schwab, a TD Ameritrade, JP Morgan, one of these larger organizations or any organization that you could set up a retirement program through, and kind of weigh the costs of that program and maybe the investment options that you would have within that program compared to, I think, what will be very limited options with the state of Illinois. So, I think there's a lot of decisions that can be made, but then once decisions are made, as Ryan indicated and Karen alluded to, relative to how these things are accounted for, we now need to track it. And how do we do that the most efficient way? And how do we make it replicable, repeatable, something that can be done on an easy basis? And for me, having fixed amounts, I think would be nice for the employees. And then also having an appropriate tool to handle that. There's different payment platforms or different employee payroll platforms like Gusto that would be able to do that. And also, I think from a bookkeeping standpoint, being able to provide records that would show the payments were made and accounted for, I think is going to be a necessary compliance component for this program as well, is what I'm estimating.
Okay, well, that's it for us at firmTRAK. Let us know, do you have 5 or more employees in the state of Illinois? Just be aware that you might have received this letter and to be on the lookout for that. And if you have any questions or want to share your experiences, leave us a comment, but otherwise we'd love to hear from you.